Hello and welcome to Chatz, a television podcast, Season 13, Part 3, New Chatzerdam. This is the third series in our season on shows that didn't last 13 episodes before getting canceled, which we've been calling 13 Under 13. My name is Alan, and fear, it keeps you in the moment. But friends, they keep you in the present. And this is where I would pause for the audience to go, aww. It's Magellan!
Hey. Thanks for keeping me in the present.
I would love to ride a roller coaster with you and think about how being up in the air keeps us away from all of our problems. That's a dream of mine, to do that with you.
You want to go to Six Flags?
I do want to go to... Oh my god, do you like roller coasters?
No.
No, you don't seem like you would. No.
I'll ride a Ferris wheel with you. Not a roller coaster.
Okay.
Or
I've never been on a
I'll
Ferris
ride like
wheel.
one that doesn't go in a loop.
So a line? You want to be in a car?
No, there are ones that go like up a, whoa, kind of like.
Oh, you're saying you would go on a roller coaster that doesn't go in a loop?
Yeah, I don't like going upside down.
Oh, a loop. I thought you meant like it closes. I was like, Magellan, buddy, they all finish. They all conclude.
Like you know what I mean? Like a loop, like a.
Yeah. They go upside. They rotate.
And I don't want to go really, really high, like the ones that are like super high. I don't want to do that.
We'll take you to like Canopy Lake Park then. That's for the northeast coast of the United States listeners out there.
Yeah. There's one at Six Flags in New England that's just like a chill wooden roller coaster that can't be much because it was built in, whenever it was built.
Yeah. Canopies are mostly like that. They're all chill vibes. It's been 20 years since I've went, so who knows? I hope you're doing well, Magellan. I'm excited to talk about the show with you. We're finishing New Amsterdam today, or we finished it, and we're talking about it.
Yeah.
It's a sad day. But I hope that folks stay tuned to the end of the podcast where we are going to be announcing the next season of Chatz, what it's going to be. So people should get hyped. But before we do that, this week we are also joined by a special guest. Sometimes I feel like they love me so much that they took my cancer away and gave it to someone else. It's Six from Scanline Media.
Hello there. On Chatzerdam 2. Magellan was like, man, we should have Six on, and it's time to fucking regret that statement. Also, I need to instantly swearing. I'm sorry, Magellan's mom. You've told me before I need to swear less. I apologize.
Okay. I actually should maybe tell her we're doing this because I bet I watched the show with her, but I don't think she's currently listening unless I told her that. I'll give her a call.
I'll call now.
We watched a lot of Fox shows together back in the day.
Ooh, yeah, that's nice. So I have a theory, right?
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
The reason this is going so badly for John Amsterdam is he misunderstood the opening statement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You shall not die. You shall not age until you find the one. In 21-1, Brock Lesnar.
Oh no! He's got a neck that looks like pancakes.
You're not gonna win till you go to WrestleMania, baby.
Oh.
Can you imagine?
What
I do not endorse Brock Lesnar. He's a bad man.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't look like a good man.
I'm a bad man. I don't trust anybody that has a knife tattoo across their chest, down their chest.
That's a really good policy, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It's my general play. Not a good idea. But Six, I'm so glad to have you here. Again, as you mentioned, this podcast guest spot came about from an offhanded comment from your email where we were like, yeah, we'd love to have you. And here we are. It's what happens when you have friends who are podcasters. You can just say, hey, hit the red button and talk to me.
And, also watch 7 episodes of the show in a day and a half. But who's counting?
I feel like I should have explicitly told you didn't have to.
You caught up on New Amsterdam?
I should have told them. I fucked up. Six watched the whole thing, and I was like,
if we had told you didn't have to, would you have done it regardless?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Listen, I think I said in that email, if you want me to be on, I'll catch up.
Yeah.
I said that in the email. So listen, this is just what I mean. If you'd been like 50 episodes into something, listen, I'm not going to try that, but
Before we talk about episode 7, do you have some thoughts on episodes 1 through 6?
I was having a really good time with the show. I mean, it's not a very clever show, but it's a style of show. I find it really hard to get into a lot of Western television, and it turns out it just needs to try a little less hard. And just be kind of like enjoyable to have on in the room as you. and that's nice.
Yeah.
And then episode 4 happened, and I was like, maybe I don't like this show.
Yeah.
Which one was 4 again?
The Indian
That
one.
was the sexual assault episode.
Sure.
And I started to get some theories about John and the way he viewed other people. And I have yet to see anything to disprove those theories, and I wish I had.
He may very well be a sneaky man.
It's not super relevant to this episode, so I basically can say, like, the difference between past John and current John is past John saw everyone, especially women, as objects, and now he sees them as objects that he at least needs to keep an eye out for. And that's not super better.
Yeah, he hasn't grown all that much in all this time he's been alive. Yeah.
No.
It's one of my critical things about the show. That I like the least is that they refuse to give this character any sort of growth or depth beyond just like, I am still cop, just like before. Even when we literally meet his first partner, and learn how he changed from there. The answer is not much. But yeah, it was like, I messaged you early in the afternoon, or you messaged me and you're like, hey, do we want to do this? And I was like, yeah. And then like 2 or 3 hours later, I finished work and you're like, okay, so I'm on fucking episode 4 and it sucks. I'm like, you're on what? You will know. What have you done? So I appreciate you going through the mud with us.
Of course.
We're now here talking about episode 7 of New Amsterdam, which is called Reclassified. We also talked about episode 8, or we're going to be talking about episode 8, Love Hurts. But first, Reclassified, written by Alan Loeb, Christian Taylor, and Eric Ellis Overmeyer, directed by Jean Desagonzac. And it aired April 7th, 2008. Magellan, my sweet friend, can you please tell me what happened in Reclassified?
In this episode, John's first homicide partner, Andy Gleason, contacts John and tells him he's dying of leukemia brought on by lead poisoning from a bullet fired by an unseen shooter 3 years previously. He asks John to bring his killer to justice. Because of his weakened condition, he can't do it himself. The investigation brings John in contact with Viktor Brodsky and his Russian mafia gang, while he flashes back to how he got started as a police detective. Meanwhile, John becomes closer to Sarah, but on their way home, he is shot by an assailant. Uh-oh. What's gonna happen there?
He's gonna die. No. Ho, ho, ho. Yeah, so by this point in the show, it seems like John is realizing that Sarah may not be the one. We can probably just touch on that stuff really briefly. He should have. They talk about this in, I think, 7 and a little bit in 8, but like, what was the point? Is it in this episode when he says like, oh, maybe we're supposed to get married in the eyes of God or something, before it confirms that she is or is not the one?
I can't remember if that's this one or 8, but yeah.
It's not this one.
It's not this one. 6, did you believe for a second that Sarah was the one?
No. This is a show that really thought it was going to get renewed for another season, so no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I started getting the suspicion by the end of this season that they learned that they were canceled during it, and that they were like, okay, crap, gotta end the Sarah plot, gotta not set up anything else, and we're done. Like, we'll talk about that, but like, yeah, they couldn't have fit it. I saw a review today that suggested maybe this show should have gone to miniseries instead of a series. Do we think that they could have resolved this plot in like a 13 episode arc, maybe?
I mean, it could have. I don't know if it would have been good.
I think they kind of resolve it in episode 8 in a way. Like,
yeah, resolve, but I mean, like, done, like, finale. This is like that. We know that Sarah is not the one. Let's move on. I guess that's probably more of a discussion for that.
I think let's talk about that in episode 8. Probably, because I have some thoughts about that, but they're like episode 8 specific.
That's fair enough. But this episode owns. It's quite good. I'll open by saying I think it's interesting. Did y'all in general enjoy Reclassified, John?
Yeah, I'm glad 6 is here so that we can have some of the fun we had with Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, where we talked about just how unabashedly post 9/11 that show was, and it was kind of fun to have some of that flavor in New Amsterdam, which was a bit of a surprise to me.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear what 6 has to say about that. And then, I don't know. It was just kind of like goofy and like took itself so seriously that it looped around to being funny. So I enjoyed it. It definitely wasn't my favorite episode unironically, but ironically it was one of the best, I think, is my thoughts on this one.
Six, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the weird things about this episode is that since they've been using this, 2/3 of the story present, I guess I would say 3/4 of the episode is about the present day, and then 1/4 is sort of like flashbacky stuff. And having the flashback be to a couple years ago is really weird. I mean, I guess it's like 6 or 7, but
yeah, definitely.
It makes it I don't know. I don't feel like they really develop the partner character in any real way. They do a little bit, but not enough to make that undercurrent feels really misused to me. But a lot of the action in the present day is really ludicrous in a way that's fun, and also episode is one of the strangest pieces of propaganda I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Yes. The partner character flashback stuff, the extent of it is, first of all, they use first person perspective shots in the past
so
stuff.
Weird.
In a way
So
that they
bad.
have not used it in any other episode. I thought that was strange. And all of the character development for the partner is in the past. He's like, "You fucking idiot, you're supposed to find the bullet." And then it cuts to the present, and John Amsterdam's like, "Man, we were such good friends. I love that guy."
That's
such a great guy.
Really?
It was hard to focus on because the Intel Discovered vibes were non-stop in those first. If anyone else remembers Intel Discovered, was it I forget if it was Connect. It was a Connect game that was FMV where you were a stunt double in a movie and became famous. It was a 20-minute long game that was free. But just this first person people talking to you in first person about how shitty you are is very Intel Discovered.
Pretty sure LMFAO is in Intel Discovered.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh my God. What a time capsule. Holy
You have to join
Best
them on
musical-
stage and hype up the crowd. Yeah.
Best musical father and uncle combo. Is it father and uncle? I think that's the case. God.
Wait, they can't be
No,
father
I think
and
it's
uncle.
I think it's uncle nephew is
Uncle
what you're
nephew.
trying to say.
Father and uncle. I knew as I was saying it out loud, I'm like, these words don't sound right. They don't.
They're always defined in terms of the kid in the crowd who's like, "That's my father and uncle up there."
It's my dad and it's second person description. I agree though. The stuff with what's the guy's name? Let's stop calling him the partner.
Andy?
What's his last name? Gleason, which is a
Gleason.
goofy
Yes.
last name. Makes me think of
Gleason.
Jackie Gleason. He's just so angry in the past, and we don't get to the part where he learns to be nice to John, and then the present it's just they are just okay, you have to help me though because you love me because I'm your bestie, and go against everything that all your rules as a cop because I matter more to you than your job, right? And he's John's yeah, I guess you do. I guess I'll do everything you say instead of my boss. And there's this weird undercurrent of we established our Six, I believe you called her sexy girl boss or whatever in a message to me. As she's an authority and she's good at her job, but she's also extremely a woman. And everything in these episodes is her being John, can you please follow your job description and take a break? And he just has to be dude protagonist and be sorry, but no. Sorry, but I gotta do the job. The job matters to me more than my career or anything. And I'm just so tired of that. And also the factor of that would happen if she was a man as well. But with this, it gives that element of he just doesn't listen to anything she says. He never ever follows the rules of his superior, because he's a no holds barred cop who helps his friend find a killer in a cavalcade of Russian stereotypes.
Yeah, if this was the cliche male sergeant, there would have to be a scene where it was listen, you have to understand how much this means to me, right? You'd have to have that moment where the chief rolls their eyes and is you know what, I get it. This better not happen again, but I get it. And here it's just it's almost like a punchline how much no one gives a shit about what she says.
She walks up and she's like, "Wait, are you doing that case I told you not to do?" And they're all
Yeah, we are. She's can you not? And they're sure, whatever. Turns around. All right, so the case that we're working on, and it's just there's no relationship between
and
them.
Marquez just rolls with it too.
Yeah.
Weirdly, yeah.
They set up like a cold open twist at the beginning where Gleason comes up to him and John's like all bummed and he's like, oh, cheer up, you get to solve a murder for me, my murder. I'm not dead yet. Because he was shot and the lead is going to eventually kill him, but he needs to find out who killed him before he dies.
Which, by the way, was really funny to me because one of the emails we got that I read on episode 2 from Nick was Nick talking about like they mentioned at one point that there's like lead in John Amsterdam's blood, and Nick was saying in the email like he can still feel pain and stuff, so presumably he should still be able to feel the effect of like now lifelong constant lead poisoning. So it's weird that they like are doing a plot where lead is having an effect on someone. I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny.
It's listening to because I listened to those episodes, before coming here. I wasn't able to listen to 5 and 6. That's not out yet. That's fine. But I feel like the way John's like immortality works is akin to like a slow over time healing factor kind of thing. And so I assume the way it works is like with the lead, basically he's healing as fast as it's hurting him, so it doesn't make a difference.
That makes sense.
And Magellan, you made a great point in I think your notes where you were like, forever the show that this is like, and which is also based on the book that this is aping from, handles the immortality in a more interesting and not believable way, but a way that doesn't require you to like bend over backwards.
It's easier to hand wave stuff, yeah. Because in Forever, when he dies, he just respawns in water, basically. So that is a lot easier than like, okay, he's got this scar and he's shot. Now we gotta like do something with that.
Yeah. Why does he have scars if he has a healing factor? So it just breaks down like that. And if he simply could die and then undie, then it would make a lot more sense.
We also learned in this episode that he's got a really big fear of heights, which made me think about what would happen if Johnny Amsterdam fell from a really high height. I guess he'd break every bone in his body and then he'd like
get up,
heal them all.
I mean, he wouldn't get up because that's like the thing we get from the end of this, right? Is he gets shot and like he wakes up in a hospital bed. I feel like the way they do it is like anytime something happens to him, it comes across as like an almost believable like freak survival, right? Where he's still a disaster, but he just doesn't die.
Yeah.
That's how I'm trying to be. That's goals. But unfortunately, not so much goals is the big reveal, as Michelle mentioned to us in New Chatzerdam 1. The reason that John became a cop is made abundantly clear in this episode as we learn more about Gleason and John, and we understand that at least John, if also Gleason, became cops because, quote, a lot of people died, a lot of my friends died in 9/11. And I don't want to see that happen again. So 9/11 made John Amsterdam become a cop. How do we feel about that?
So it's really funny that yesterday you asked me to guess, right?
Yeah. This is amazing. Go ahead.
And there are two layers. One is I did guess it was 9/11, but
wow, nice work.
I hadn't watched the show yet, and so I messed it up in a really funny way. Where you were like, you gave me the clue. You're like, remember, it's 2008, and you meant the show is from 2008, and I thought you meant remember this. He joins the cops in 2008, and so my guess was like 7 years later. He thinks about it and goes, 9/11 was really messed up.
Which is
what the writers of New Amsterdam are doing, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Bing bong. Yeah, 9/11, Jesus. 9/11 made people become cops. I guess this is in some ways a little historically accurate.
I mean,
they make it seem like everyone. They make it seem like, and then everyone became cops. Like that's like a normal response to a national crisis.
I'm sure there was an influx of people joining the police force at the time.
Yes.
And I'm sure they also were like increasing the funding and militarization of the police force as well. So when I learned that was the reason, it was kind of that feeling of like, I should have guessed that. That makes sense.
Yeah, it seems really obvious in hindsight.
It's like, what else could it be?
Katrina.
But also, it is stupid.
And well, I mean, the other thing, right, that kind of makes it work for it and makes a lot of John Amsterdam as a character work for me is I feel like when this show starts, you're episode 1 and 2, and you're like, not only is he immortal, he's also this brilliant detective, right?
Mhm.
And the thing that I feel like, and I don't know if y'all are going to agree with this, but I felt like I came to over the course of this show is he's not. He is immortal. And so over the course of 400 years, he has gained a lot of skills. He has gained a lot of experience. He has gained a lot of knowledge. He's not a very smart guy, actually.
Right.
No.
Right.
No, I agree.
And so that's like, oh yeah, no, just like, straightforward, simple guy is like, man, I can't believe those foreign bastards did this to my city. I'm gonna join the police and rough up my fellow citizens. Like, yeah, okay, that's some smart guy logic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so like we're off to the races now. We have a plot. We're trying to figure out who shot Gleason. We get a flashback to the scene, which when Gleason tells this story, reminding us that like how propaganda this show is, the first thing he says is, so I was busting these 2 banditos, and it's like, wow, you guys wrote that down and said that was okay to say, and I get it. He's a shitty cop. But like the show in no way portrays that as like a fucked up thing to say or a weird thing to say. It's almost like, yeah, that's the first thing you say when you describe these guys. They're banditos. Like, we all know that. It's like, come on.
Yeah, we're supposed to like Gleason, right? Like, we're supposed to think he's a little abrasive, obviously, but I think we're supposed to feel sympathetic towards him, right?
I mean, they're having him, die of leukemia. I think usually you do that when you want someone to be sympathetic. So, yeah.
Right.
And like all the Ferris wheel stuff is showing that like, okay, he's sensitive and he loves his wife, which, speaking of which, incredible appearance of Christine Sutherland, aka Joyce Summers from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as his wife, and all the scenes where she's like, she says the line, like, sometimes I think he took my cancer and gave it to himself, which I had to tweak so that I didn't say that you have cancer 6. But
I really had to think about it for a minute when this was happening, because I was like, it's not like there's no way, right? But the way she phrased this is so weird that it's not like oh, it turns out these arms dealers also had some drug that transfers cancer. Because the phrasing of that was so strange.
Yeah, I know. They just had a lot of money.
It's very roundabout. The line is roundabout to be like, he took my cancer, he gave it to himself, and that's why he loves me so much. Like, okay. Thank you, Joyce Summers, who the only thing I can see her as. But yeah, we are supposed to like Gleason, and then the show just becomes a super duper procedural. In the past, there isn't really a like specific plot in the past. It's just like, here's their relationship building, and in that way, I think that the past plot line kind of let me down, because I do enjoy it when New Amsterdam is like, okay, the past is about this, and the present is also about that, but in a different context, and that's not really the case in this one. It's just giving us a backstory to a character we just met. But then the present, I guess I said earlier, goes down the list of like, okay, how many random generic villain stereotypes can we go down? We have clearly white American actors playing Russian Americans doing like extreme Russian accents. There's probably some Eastern European actors in there. I can't make assumptions about everyone, but the one that made me laugh the most was when he goes to like the carnival, and he's like, John is like, oh, I know how to win the shooting game, so this guy will give me information, and he knows that it's like bullshit, and the guy says to him, you are carny, not cop, and he says, honestly, sometimes I can't tell the difference, which is the closest this show has gotten to being right. So close, New Amsterdam, you were almost there. And he gets a big teddy bear or whatever and gets some information. And then, yeah, it's like, it ends up being a Russian mafia thing. I don't really care. It's really corny. I literally wrote in my notes here, cop, chase scene, cop, because that's all that they do for a while. Did any of this stuff land with y'all? Was any of it interesting?
No, not at all. I wrote down some quotes from the cop stuff. That the one that bothered me the most is they like talk to this one parole officer guy who's trying to, bust people or whatever. And when they find Nazir, who the whole time Andy's like, Nazir, he's the one that shot me. Nazir, you gotta find Nazir. And he's like fixated on this guy in a way that feels troubling and, I don't know, racist or something.
Perhaps post 9/11. Yeah, who knows?
Then they find Nazir. The parole officer says, "You maggot, I'm gonna violate you back to prison so fast." I was like, whoa.
Also, when they finally after the chase, when he catches him, he's like, "You don't have a right to take me in." And the guy says, "Bruises or no bruises, your call." It's like, cool, great, love this.
And then they take him in, and Marquez, like, okay, is this a thing? Marquez says, he's like, I want a lawyer. Marquez says, you don't get a lawyer. You're a convicted felon in violation of his parole. Is that a thing?
I tried Googling this. I couldn't get a firm answer. Six, do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I think my best guess, giving them the benefit of the doubt, is that maybe he doesn't get a lawyer at this point in the process or something. Because he definitely gets a lawyer. That's not how this works. But you know, maybe there are stages of it where it's like, at this point we can say that we are technically discussing your parole, and so for that part we are allowed to not have a lawyer present or something. I don't know.
God, that's fucked up.
I love the criminal justice system in our country. It's really good and fair to people.
Also, I mean, Nazir is not only shown to have not done it, but to have been generally pretty much a harmless dude all around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also his character motivation is really confusing, because when they bring him in, he's like, they're like, we could put you away for this, and he'd be like, honestly, you'd be doing me a favor. That would actually be great, because if I go out on the streets, they're going to kill me. Right. And then like a minute and a half later into the scene, he's like, so can I go? It's like, did you wanna, what?
Huh?
Were you not listening to yourself from the last scene? No, I gotta go. They gotta go kill me out there. It's the next plot moment.
My mark is halfway across town. I'm running out of time.
This episode does, I'll give it a little bit of credit. It doesn't introduce the real villain in the last 30 seconds like most of the episodes do. Fucking Scooby-Doo style or whatever. No, Scooby-Doo's actually good about it. Scooby-Doo introduces the guy at the beginning and then says it's the guy. We see that Gleason had a previous partner who it does turn out is the one who shot him. Was the idea that guy was like trying to do a bust or something? What was the reasoning for
they were both there for the money.
Yeah. Because Gleason was there to get the money from the drug runners because he wanted it for his wife's cancer treatments. And then his partner was there to also get the money and just shot Gleason when he saw that Gleason was there.
So they're both corrupt cops?
Yeah. And it's such a weird, like...
But one of them's corrupt for bad reasons.
Yeah. Whoa, okay.
And then there are good cops, too, just to be clear. Cops are good. There's bad cops and some cops do bad for the right. It's all good. Cops are good.
It's so weird. It's so weird because like the ending of this episode is like they bring him and they bring Andy for this moment of like revealing the truth, and it's like, Andy, if you want to shoot him, you can. This is your one chance. Like, what are we gonna do? Put you in jail? You're gonna die in 5 minutes.
I mean, your wife's gonna be bummed out, but go ahead, take your shot.
Here's a gun.
And he's like, fine. You know what, my wife, you're right. And so it's like, okay, so our ending here is this guy has taken the money and spent it, and then killed Andy, and then also like Andy himself has been revealed to be like corrupt, where he's willing to steal this shit, and then sort of an ending of like, see, the system works. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
You like, they like rigorously explain that everybody involved is corrupt, and at the end they're like, but it's fine. Like, hey, hold on, guys.
And then Andy gets this like poetic little death on the Ferris wheel, where he's like, I like to go where I'm scared because it makes me feel alive or whatever. And
fear, it keeps you in the moment.
And then he passes away peacefully. You're like, no. You don't, that's not like a capper to your character. But yeah, it was silly.
It's also very strange that, so I assume, do they get it? Spoil me a little bit. do they engage with the Russian plot more in episode 8?
No.
Yeah,
Not
so
even
that's
not even a little bit.
because this felt like a capsule episode, but it's a capsule episode where like John like pisses off the Russian mafia and they swear to end him no matter what, and they shoot him in broad daylight, and it's just like, all right, you know what, all's well that ends well.
Yeah, maybe they were, I don't know,
out of time.
Yeah,
I think that was gonna build to something.
Maybe, yeah.
Potentially, yeah.
But in the spectrum of this show, in the scope of this show, rather, he's shot. We know who did it, and we just move past that. Like, okay, we don't have time to even figure. It probably would have literally been the next episode if there was an episode 9 where they were like, "Oh, we looked into who shot you, and it was one of the Russians because of XYZ," and that would have been something. But yeah, the line "fear" it keeps you in the moment. Mostly focuses on John because it's him being like, you're supposed to think like, okay, is that why he became a cop? Like, is it actually because he needs to like be on the edge and be like hyper aware all the time because otherwise he doesn't feel alive because
that's
mortality.
That's
Isn't it? And the show just like the camera work does that for you.
Right. The episode, it doesn't really ask that question in a significant way because that becomes like everybody saying to John Amsterdam, like, hey, you're going to get yourself killed.
Yeah.
And like maybe that's his thing is because then there's that moment where he's like, Sarah's like, hey, you know, be careful or whatever. And he's like, I'll be careful. And then it cuts to him going to the Russian mob and putting the gun to the guy's head and saying like, tell me all this shit, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
That last Sarah scene has a couple of moments that I found really awkward. First of all, Sarah proudly shows off her divorce papers. Divorce papers signed, sealed, delivered, to which John says, you're a free woman now, which like, oh my God, this is so weird. The way that they're like, now you can finally be with me because you're free from your shitty husband. And that just feels cartoonish. And so does her saying, you know what? I did it my way. You know, regrets, I may have had a few. And it's like, I want Frank Sinatra's ghost to come out and be like, no. You guys actually can't have this.
Fingers to keys gonna do that gag in my notes of like, she said did it my way. And then they just did it. It's like,
she does like the whole chorus. It's like, shut up.
You gotta do like the Drake yes, no meme, but you superimpose Frank Sinatra's face. And it's her saying, I did it my way, no. And then it's the Final Fantasy Origin Stranger of Paradise, yes.
Using my way. Yeah, that's exactly right. That game actually licensed the song, which is awesome.
Yeah.
In a really awkward way.
It's really great because like it's one of their trailers, but also just like a key moment of the game where a character has come to an important decision is him walking through amber waves of grain while My Way plays. It's just like,
it's sick.
all right. It's really good,
awesome.
but it's so strange.
That's awesome.
And so John gets shot, and then you're like, oh yeah, the episode should just end on him getting shot. And we get another like 2 minutes of him like getting brought to the hospital and then waking up, like almost waking up and almost dying. And oh, he's awake. I think they just wanted this song to play at the end. This Day by Faithless song or whatever. It's very saccharine. I just watched an episode of Scrubs earlier today. That like makes fun of Grey's Anatomy for ending every episode on a sappy like song and a message. And you know, it's funny there because they know that they're doing it too. But like New Amsterdam just does that kind of thing where it's like, and we made it, yay! And it's like it ended with him surviving. We know he survives. He's immortal. What's good about this moment? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, it could have been that he didn't survive because he found his true love. You know, he found the one. So clearly, he's gonna die now. And never mind the fact that it's episode 7, so even if they knew they got canceled, there would be more episodes.
And the song is called Last This Day, as in survive another day. Like, that's with the line that's repeating over and over again.
I don't know. I think it kind of worked for me, actually, because there's like this sort of ironic thing of, oh, yeah, we like, you know, it's the moment where he's wheeled to the hospital and he's going to make it. And everybody else is like, oh, thank God. And he's like, oh, no, I lasted another day. You know, like in the context of this show, that scene carries a different weight or has a different effect because he doesn't want to survive. So I think that kind of worked
Yeah,
for me.
or something like he wanted to die, except he just happened to die like a day early, and he's like, "Can I just get one more day?" Like even with 400 years, he still was wanting one more. I think there is something there, except like you were saying, like we know there's another episode, and we know he's fine immediately. So I think if the show, yes, go ahead.
I did, however, really enjoy his like incredibly cheesy dream of the moment he explains everything to Sarah, where she's like, "Wow, I understand. Your photo thing is so clever. Thank you for telling me everything, John."
I'm glad
You're
that was
so
in this one. I
sexy."
wanted to talk about that scene. I thought that was in the beginning of the next one.
You know what bugged me about that is like, just to say something about episode 8, is okay. Spoilers for people who are listening who haven't watched episode 8. They break up in episode 8, and she still doesn't believe the whole "I'm an immortal" thing.
Yeah.
But this episode shows something he could have done to be like, "Hey, look at my wall of photos that I've taken because I'm immortal," and he didn't do that in real life. I don't know. It's just like, if you're gonna show us that,
then explain why that won't work.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, her reaction in it is incredibly cartoonish and artificial. Yes. So maybe
because it's a dream.
Yeah, maybe giving them credit. It's like, so this is how this is going to go. It's just going to be like, "Wow, thank you so much. You're so clever and sexy." And wow, I just admire everything about all of this artistry. I don't think that would be her reaction.
Yeah, that's true.
No. I appreciate her reaction to this, but that's an episode 8 thing as well. I think they're like trying to do things with Sarah, and then the show is over. Oops. But yeah, that's episode 7. Did we have any stray notes or other things we wanted to talk about?
What's the like shitty cop who hangs out in all the episodes and I don't like him?
I always want to call him like Spagnoli or something. I know
it's something like that. There's like something, he's in a past moment, and maybe something John Amsterdam says to him, and then he goes, "Hot dog, extra mustard." And he like says it to himself quietly. So stupid.
You said you were young. You don't look so young.
Got a late start.
9/11? Yeah. There are worse reasons for becoming a cop.
Someday you'll tell me what yours were.
Hot dog. Extra mustard.
Hot dog, extra mustard. And the other stray note who? Oh, Santori.
Santori, yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
The other stray note I had was the metal detector scene. When was the last time you thought about metal detectors?
That's a good point.
Been a while.
Want to go on our beach and do some metal detecting?
Yeah, I definitely do. I definitely do want to do that. Was that like an aughts thing that people were like, "Yeah, metal detectors"?
Well, it was yeah. Go ahead, Six.
I mean, it's kind of still a thing. It's just a very specific. I think because we've all been inside because of COVID, we've forgotten about this. But like old people combing the beach, or like people who are like just hoping to get lucky because it's like, oh no, you're combing the beach with this metal detector and you find like jewelry or like coins and stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna pawn this, and it is an easy way to make a quick buck.
Yeah, I think I've actually seen this in real life, and it was really exciting. I was on a beach and I saw a guy with a metal detector, and I was like, holy crap, it's like in the cartoons. And also, there's like a broader point to be made about like, the average person thought that they could quote make it big for a while, and now we've accepted that that's like a American myth in a way. It's like you're not going to find like a diamond on the beach. No one would have buried it low enough that or high enough that a metal detector would have found it, and only you got it, and you got so lucky, and now you're rich. I think it's just more of like a meditative activity that old people do. Like fishing.
To be fair, I think the imagined scenario is that you have like, I don't know, like a lady who's there in her swimsuit with like a bracelet on, and it falls off and she doesn't notice because she's at the beach.
Yeah, you get something like that. Exactly. You get just
it doesn't metal. I assume it doesn't happen very often, at least.
Hold on. I'm gonna go on Amazon and look up how much a metal detector is. This is in the same space of my brain as like quicksand, where it's like shows just don't talk about quicksand anymore.
Right. Exactly.
Wow, metal detector, 148. Okay. You're gonna pay 104.
Yeah, that sounds like what I might expect it to be.
But they go they scale, right? There's one that's $1,100. So
sure. Really... I mean, listen, if you're a pro, you gotta.
There's $90 off of the. You know how Amazon has those like coupons? There's one that's $200 and you can save $90 with a coupon. This is for children. Okay, I understand now.
I love to have gone on this arc with you, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, we went together. But yeah, it's a fairly straightforward episode. I wish they did more with Gleason. I did have a point though, like, and we'll talk about this more later, but with like, if New Amsterdam could have been tweaked, how would it change? And if this was like a 10-episode series and just started and ended like that, I would have really loved an episode that's like, okay, John gets shot, so tragic, the plot comes to a screeching halt. Next episode is about Centauri, is about Centauri's day off, or is about Marquez, and we spent an entire episode away from our protagonist. Because like HBO dramas have been really good about doing a thing like that, where like episode 7 or 8 of the season, they're like, okay, our main guy is like dealing with something, so now we're gonna focus on a guy or a person who is not so like significant to the plot. Let's see what their whole story is. And I love stuff like that, and I wish that they had any time to do anything except the John Amsterdam story here. But it's 2008, and we have to focus on my man, Nikolai.
I think my only other stray note is sort of a series-wide stray note of chiding y'all for being so down on the name John Amsterdam, because apparently you don't remember your Guys and Dolls and Nathan Detroit. There's a proud tradition.
Nathan Detroit?
Okay.
Yeah, that's Frank Sinatra's character in Guys and Dolls.
I haven't seen Guys and Dolls.
I'm willing to be chastised over that. You're right.
Thank you.
Things you missed from not being in the Chatz Discord, by the way. Me realizing that X-Men comics writer Chris Claremont is also this naming convention. And so is Carmen Sandiego. So, pretty good, right? I was like, wait, guys, look. Felt pretty good about those two. And then I came up with Danny Damascus, which is my OC in the John Amsterdam universe.
Danny Damascus.
Danny Damascus is a good name.
Because Danny Detroit is boring.
Nice.
Danny Detroit's like, or like Derek Detroit, whatever. You do. I want that. But Danny Damascus.
Are you going to start going by Danny Damascus?
Yay, bud. That's what I was about to say. That's me.
Yay, bud.
It would be Denny, so I can be
Denny.
for the Pride and Prejudice.
Denny
Damascus.
Damascus.
Yeah.
I think
that's
I have a
nice.
mysterious side character named Marcus Francisco.
Ooh.
That's good. I like that.
Last name Just Francisco is really good because that's a real last name. I love it a lot. Magellan, what's your New Amsterdam OC?
Probably Richard Quito, like Quito, Ecuador.
Wouldn't that character doesn't come up a lot, huh? Not spending much time in New York.
No.
Yeah,
he's
if
doing
only there was one.
his own thing.
That's
there
the
was a
episode
New
when they
York
go to
one.
Ecuador.
His curse is that he's only been alive for 30 seconds and is dead now. That's his thing. He's had the briefest life.
Marcus Francisco is a body that is filled by the spirit of the city of San Francisco.
Oh.
That I like. No, that's nice.
Excellent. 6, this has been a lot of fun. Can I ask you, where can people find you on the internet?
Of course. So you can find me on the internet at on Twitter at Sixdetmar, SIXDETTMAR. And you can find my work at scanlinemedia.com and patreon.com/scanlinemedia. I do a lot of podcasts, some of them with Alan here, though you're going to hear about that at the end.
I'm Alan.
I do have some Chatzums if you want them.
I definitely do. I super do. Please.
So 2 are pretty quick. The first one is, turns out I mostly cover anime for when I'm watching stuff. I do, some anime crit, and I watch subtitled stuff, and it's hard to build gunpla while doing that. Turns out when people are talking in English, you can get a lot of gunpla built, and that's nice. So I like that. Second quick shout out. Turns out if you use the Raising Cane's app and you want a substitution, I was like, hey, no coleslaw. And they're like, that's fair. Do you want extra fries or extra Texas toast to compensate at no charge? And I was like, yes, I do. How generous.
Is this
so
a Chatzum
generous.
for Raising Cane's?
It's just if you're gonna order, use the app.
Okay.
App's good.
Not sponsored. Not
sponsored. I have a podcast where I talk about a lot of fast food I'm not sponsored to talk about. And then the last one, sort of the real one, is we got an upcoming podcast on Shenmue 3. And people should check out the Shenmue series. I don't know if you're going to be able to finish those by the next podcast, but it's a series of games that I feel like are really misunderstood because people like to make memes out of them. But it's kind of a story about a kid who gets caught up in the plot of a wuxia film or a martial arts film, a revenge story, only he lives in the real world, and trying to make that plot continue is really hard because he's like going to his neighborhood greengrocer and being like, have you seen any suspicious men? And the greengrocer's like, Rio, what are you talking about? You should go home. It's really good. So
I've always been interested.
Check them out, and you can watch a Let's Play. You won't lose that much. I do think they're just good games to play, but like if you want to stick with watching it, I don't think there's nothing wrong with that.
I actually did watch the old Giant Bomb Let's Play back in the day.
Unfortunately, not a great one to watch.
No, because they skipped so much stuff, and they also played it in a really weird way. I remember, like they did not do all the events.
It's not a great one for like people who are having a conversation amongst themselves while playing, because it's a game, like a lot of the game is doing like investigation work, and when you don't listen to what people tell you, you end up running in circles for hours. So not ideal. But
I was just going to say, speaking of your podcast, that you recently, as of this episode, at least covered The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, which prompted me to realize I watched one of Magellan's favorite anime. Which I watched incorrectly back in the day, because I watched the first chronological episode, and I was like, I hate this. This is so confusing and boring. And it turns out I was not watching the correct first episode. So we might do something with that.
I encourage watching with the order that it was originally aired in, the broadcast order. Mm-hmm. But like if you watched it a different way and had a good time, rock on. It's just that if you bounced off, it's like, well, they kind of don't. It's more boring the way. That it's just chronological, so
definitely it's baffling that Crunchyroll decided to put them in chronological order.
Also, we should have another episode out by now on Haruhi talking about the Endless Eight with Nick, so that's fun.
Other Nick, not our Nick. Other Nick.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, of the Brothers at Infinite Suffering.
I love both Nicks. I'm a fan of Nick and the television channel Nick, so that's 3 Nicks. Thank you, Six. Magellan, we will be back right after this brief musical break to discuss the series finale of New Amsterdam, Love Hurts.
Hey folks, Magellan coming in here in the middle of the episode with an email from Old as Your Omens. Thank you, Omens, for sending an email. If you all want to send emails to Chatz, you can do so at chatspot@gmail.com. Omens says the following. Hi, my dear friends. It is me. It's been a while since I've written in, though you've heard my lovely voice a few times. That's true. Omens was our co-host on our Vanity Chats last year and has been around a few times. And is a listener from way, way back. One of the OGs. Anyway, in terms of the speculation about the ways John Amsterdam could get stuck, becoming unable to heal in a deadly situation and driving himself insane, the movie The Old Guard deals with this terribly, like so bad. The main couples are both gay though, so it has that going for it, and like only that. That's funny. It's like New Amsterdam, except now it's a team of 4 CIA black ops, one of which is a new immortal getting shot to death and reviving with sickening pops of bullets every 20 minutes. But the main conflict of the movie involves the MC's love interest, the main character, I guess is what that stands for, who was chained to the bottom of the ocean as a witch and has spent the last 400 years constantly drowning. Spoilers. Well, it turns out she's escaped at the end of the film, and we don't know what happened to her. Oh no, not even slightly. It's exactly not the ending I would have expected. It contains no catharsis and was just there to subvert expectations and set up a sequel. Essentially, the one Asian female character is the one that always got stuck, and they always had to go back and rescue her, but she got stuck one too many times where they couldn't reach her, and she rescues herself off screen. It has some interesting themes, but barely scrapes the surface in favor of gore. So there you go. That's a review of The Old Guard. Overall, though, New Amsterdam is even more boring and bad. Like, there's a plot that could go places, packed with bigotry that it doesn't acknowledge, that allows it to go nowhere. There's so many interesting things it could do with its plot, but it's just an extra police procedural with flashbacks and more stereotypes. If it let people of color into the cast more regularly and explored John Amsterdam's relationships with the changing cultural and social makeup of American life, especially as it's changed so rapidly in the last 70 years, that would be a far more interesting show. Yeah, I agree. It just doesn't really explore what it means to be not just an immortal dude, but like an immortal white man in America, which, yeah, could have been much more interesting. Like, instead of making him a cop, make him an old money vigilante who gets to hang out with rich people all the time and scuff them up, like a mix of Succession and this show. If this show were done today, that's how I think it would be. If we even wanted to give some nuance to indentured servitude, Irish immigration, and their class relations with enslaved Africans, great. Yeah, that would be interesting if they did that. If you want a great short movie on indentured servitude, sure do. Check out Maggie Delaney's story on YouTube. It's so good, and Carol Jarbo is a wonderful interpreter and actress. Pay attention to her husband Frank as the parson, too. It's hard not to. They're the only two characters. Oh, people from America knowing nothing about Indian culture is nothing new. On a show, I kind of don't expect it to have any nuance at this point, which is why I was so happy when Never Have I Ever came out, and I still haven't watched it. I don't think it's something Midge, that's me, Magellan, would like. It's kind of teeny, but if anyone wants to watch it on the Discord, let me know. It has 2 seasons. Okay, so there's an open offer from Omens to watch Never Have I Ever on the Discord. By the way, I don't think I said this, but this is an email specifically in response to New Chatzerdam 2, where we watched that episode that really poorly handled the like Little India community in New York thing. Anyway, Omens goes on to say more about that particular episode. The whole honor killing thing. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Strict parents are strict parents ultimately, and I have kept a lot of secrets from strict parents of every race and culture. Thankfully, the worst punishment one of my friends ever received was 2 or 3 days out of school. But back home, for some of them, honor killing is a serious and literal danger. Acknowledging it on a 2007 show? Not expected, but would have been so nice. Instead, we get this bullshit. Sorry to end on a low note, but wow, wow, wow. I want to go support my local Indian Workman's Cafe now. The Decemberists don't deserve this torture. That's funny. Truly, you summed the show up perfectly in saying, oh, can you do something with that? No. You only have 13 episodes, even less than that. Love to y'all and be well, Omens. Thank you, Omens, for that message. Yeah, I think that's a good capper on our discussion of that episode and on New Amsterdam overall, which is that in a constellation of things that are bad, it somehow manages to be really boring and offensive. And it's a bummer because the show has a lot of potential. There's a lot you could explore here, and it goes for the most anodyne possible main character, the most anodyne possible motivation for this character to have. I think it just says a lot about where we were in 2008 and what was seen as profitable, who held power in television and stuff like that. I bet if New Amsterdam came out in the age of social media, prestige TV, streaming, it could have been a lot more interesting. It might have been dumb in different ways, but as it is, this is the show we got. And you're going to hear Alan and myself discuss the final episode of New Amsterdam, which, spoilers, it doesn't solve these problems in the last 45 minutes of the show's existence. So anyway, you can email us as well at chatspot@gmail.com. And I'm going to throw it back to Alan and Magellan to discuss the final episode of New Amsterdam entitled Love Hurts. Welcome back to New Chatzerdam. It's the third of the shows where we talk about how they don't go so long in 13 Under 13. You might be wondering, what's the fourth show in 13 Under 13? Well, we'll talk about it later. We're going to give it a rest for a little while and come back to it. Anyway, New Amsterdam's over. Alan's
Aw.
here. Hi, Alan.
Oh, I'm here.
We watched episode 8, Love Hurts.
Ugh.
It was written. It was written by Alan Loeb, Christian Taylor, and David Manson. Directed by Matthew Penn. It aired on April 14th, 2008. Alan, what happened in Love Hurts?
That's wild. How does this keep working out that we record the episodes on the day that the episodes aired? It's April 14th, 2008. And in this episode, John recovers fast from his gunshot attack and is quick to go back to work despite Sarah.
Did you just lie to the listeners?
It's called acting.
Okay.
In this episode, John recovers fast from his gunshot attack and is quick to go back to work despite Sarah trying to get him to go with her to Montauk, which is in upstate New York for people who aren't from the East Coast.
Yeah.
Eva investigates the case of a woman who apparently drowned. Really? That sentence also drowned. The investigation leads to investigation. I'm on fire, baby.
Oh my God.
The investigation leads to robberies of wealthy men linked to a dating service claiming to help people find their soulmate. Meanwhile, John looks back at his life in the 1920s, seeing no connections between him looking for a soulmate and the plot of the episode. In the 20s, he committed fraud and stole an expensive diamond pendant from his lover. And elsewhere, John wants to be sure if Sarah is his true love. But when Omar points out that John is still immortal, he begins to wonder if she truly is the one and decides to back away from their growing relationship. New Amsterdam, 2008. It's done, folks. We watched the whole thing.
So, before we talk about the contents of this episode, because honestly, it's like kind of dull, to be real. What are you feeling here at the end of New Amsterdam? Do you wish there was more? Is it done? What do you think?
I would have liked a different version of this show. I think that there's still potential in the like immortal man living in a city plot where he's named after the city. All of those things are really cool. Don't need him to be a homicide detective. If they're gonna do that though, then make this a mini series, get me in and out, have him solve one big crime that ties back to something he did in the past. I don't know, make the plot about Roosevelt the like underlying plot of the whole mini series, and he solves it and he's like, did I cause this? That's your mini series right there. If you want this to go for multiple seasons, you're running into like problems with scope and with stakes because he's invincible. And I don't know. Yeah, just do something else with an immortal man. That concept is cool. But as it stands, I felt like, yeah, this was about what I expected to get out of this show. I got exactly what I anticipated.
Yeah.
E2?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think there are fundamental things about the show that just don't quite work, that I don't know could have been fixed with more show. I do wonder what they were thinking of doing next. Like, it seems obvious to me that from the get-go, Sarah was not going to be the one. And so the kind of lingering thing I'm wondering about is, okay, is there a one? And it's just as simple as, it was that lady on the platform, or it's Marquez or something. Or is it just like a misinterpretation of the thing or whatever? Because it sort of feels like you have enough material by the end of this episode to walk away with a take.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of a cynical one, I think. But I'm curious what the original plan was if they had gotten more time or more show. But yeah, I think a lot of the show's fundamental problems come from the fact that it was made in 2008. And I just don't know that those problems could have been fixed in 2008 in the landscape of TV that we were in at that time.
Yeah, and that same IGN reviewer who I saw was reviewing the show as it aired, all they had to really say about this was like, yeah, I didn't need this to go any longer. It's full of plot holes, and the show never held its water. Like, it just didn't. It didn't seem like it was going to last even for episode 1. Yeah. Which is interesting because like this episode has elements of a finale. It references things we've talked about back in the pilot. We get another version of the pool scene where Marquez and Amsterdam see each other.
2 more versions of it.
Yeah,
everybody
right. Because it
takes a turn seeing him nude in the pool.
Yeah, it's just like it rotations because Omar also sees him in the pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he does that again, And again, Marquez is like, this is really uncool. And then later, Omar sees him and he's like, the only reason you can come in here is because you stole a key in 1930 and now you have a permanent skeleton key to get into this pool, which is like a funny explanation for this. And also kind of a backdoor way to explain why John is in such good shape, is he can just go swimming for free all the time. So I thought that was kind of cute. And like, hey, that was a scene that I remembered from the pilot. It's in the thumbnail of New Chatzerdam 01. They must listen to the show. But this show also just buckles constantly under the police procedural stuff. I found the police procedural stuff here the most boring it's ever been. I thought there were
definitely.
like visual elements in the past that I enjoyed. And I like, visual, like John's mustache, for example, is really on point. He looks like a little carny man, and he's doing double cons in the past. So he's like working with inept criminals who then get threatened, and then and he gets shot, and they're like, I guess I leave all my money here. And then he's working with the guy who shot him, and it's very nice. There's a funny moment though where after he has that first flashback, because he's still recovering from the gunshot wound, so like Callie, Marquez, and the other guy are like all with him. And Callie looks at him and she's like, John, what are you doing when you do that? Are you like reminiscing? Why are you reminiscing so much? And like, I don't need New Amsterdam to break the fourth wall, guys. I'm all set. This isn't a show where I expected them to ever do that. And it did make me like chuckle out loud that she was like, it's again, I was talking about Scrubs in part 1, where like people say, hey, JD, what do you turn your head to the right and you imagine us in weird scenarios. What is that? I also found it funny that like Sarah just really, really wants to go to Montauk, and she's got John's number, right? She's like, I want to go. I have a cabin. You're coming with me. And he's like, but work. And she's like, I literally talked to your partner and your boss. You don't have work. And he's like, but there's crime. I cannot do it. And so he's just, again, like perpetuating that stereotype of like men must put their work over everything because they have a job to do. And I would enjoy a vacation episode where, like, again, send John and Sarah to Montauk, and we get a little bit of them like whining and dining, and then we get like Marquez and them doing like a cool A plot about like finding a serial killer that John never hears about, and he comes back and he's like, "How was it?" And they're like, "Oh, typical Thursday." Yeah, what I miss, and they're like, "Nothing special," and it's like an epic, amazing tearjerker episode.
Yeah.
That's my overall take on Amsterdam. Is the ideas I have in my head are 8,000 times more interesting than what the show ever does. And it makes me think that maybe I can write TV. Oh, wait.
You should. Dude. You should write something.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you believe in the one?
Oh my God. I briefly mentioned in our first episode here that we've talked about this topic before, and I don't believe
I feel like we've talked about it on Chatz, but I can't. Maybe when we did Pushing Daisies or something. Possibly,
that would make sense. I really missed that season. I need to re-listen to that one. Let's get there, throw Chatz. Come on. I think you can have multiple ones. I don't think that there's like a specific single person out there who's waiting for you. It's an outdated term that also like buys into monogamy as a concept, and also just like assumes that love works between two people and only two people, which is not how I believe love to work. I think that it's a sort of like aura around groups of people. Yeah. What about you? You're like, oh, I absolutely believe in it. Oh, you're the one. I'm like, oh.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
No, I agree with that. I think there's obviously people who like are better suited for one another, or have certain experiences or tastes or interests or whatever that enable them to get along better. I think there are just like, I think the pool of people who you can really deeply, completely like love is probably somewhat small, just in terms of like, of all the people you're going to come across in your life. But I think it's bigger than one person is sort of my feeling about it.
For me, Magellan, if it's sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want you to say this to me.
If it's one person, it's the nicotine chewing coroner in the show.
I thought you were gonna say me.
I mean, yeah.
Oh.
Like, duh. We all know that.
Oh.
No, Magellan, I can't say that because then the shippers have nothing to... They don't want food. They want snacks. They want crumbs. We can't just give them... Yeah.
Oh,
We're
it's
just
so
friends. We're
funny
just
when
friends.
you
We're just-
joke like that and we both turn away and cry to ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, boy. That time you told me about your girlfriend of 7 years and we were literally in the same bed together, just not looking at each other. Like, super friendly. It was super awkward, though, but I liked it. I mean...
or whatever. I mean...
Or whatever. No, it's not
I didn't
weird.
like
I
it.
don't-
I just...
No, I didn't like it that much. Yeah, no, it was fine.
Yeah,
That was weird.
whatever. It's something to do. Just pass the time. But what the thing about this episode is it like is kind of asking that question. I don't think it's doing it in a particularly like precise way because it has to do all this murder detective plot stuff too. But I think I said this in last episode. But what I'm kind of landing on with my interpretation coming out of New Amsterdam is the reason that John Amsterdam has not yet found the one is because, and I think it's like a bummer that they didn't use the dating site thing more, you know?
Yeah.
Because I've read stuff about how like, you know, nowadays with like dating apps or whatever, people have like really unrealistic expectations for what they want out of a relationship and also are like less inclined to invest deeply in a relationship because of the just like sheer quantity and availability of options to meet somebody, right? And to me that sort of feels like John Amsterdam's problem is that he probably has met people who could have been the one, but he like didn't do the work or commit or like truly allow himself to be vulnerable enough to get to that point in that relationship because he's like, oh, but the one, you know, someone perfect for me is out there where I won't have to do any work at all and it'll just be instant, like we're together and it's done and I feel mortal right away. And so he's like going through his immortal life having these ultimately shallow relationships where he does women dirty because he's like, but the, you know, the next person that comes along, she's going to be the one. And I think he's the problem. And he could have been mortal and happy a long time ago. And he's like keeping himself from that.
It's tough when it's your protagonist. At least in, oh wait, like we have messy protagonists now. Tony Soprano paved the way for like mucked up, fucked up protagonists. Your Walter Whites, your Don Drapers, who audiences misunderstood for years and years and years. But if you want, then yeah, tell me the story about John realizing, looking for the one was never going to work. That concept doesn't work. That's how you do this in the modern day. And you say something like he's tried all the apps and he's trying to date. And we get like an awkward dating scene. I would really love that. And then he goes, oh, maybe it's just not this. And he lets his guard down. And that is when Marquez slips in and they start bonding more. And she's like supportive to him and they get like drinks together. And it's like, you know, it's very saccharine, but I think that was like ultimately what they would have done. And there was a lot more dimensionality to like love and what a soulmate can be than what the show ended up doing.
Yeah.
Do we ever figure out why Marquez is barfing in this episode, by the way?
I don't know.
She's like barfing when they're in the corners off. I think she says she doesn't like the smell of formaldehyde. And then they're like, I thought it was something else. And they're going to reveal that she's pregnant or something wild.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention, to be honest.
You're not supposed to say that part out loud, Magellan. Jeez.
It was a really boring episode. I don't know what to tell you. We can basically say what happened. What did you think of the present plot, I guess? We have this dating service. This woman is robbing all these wealthy guys that use it.
Mm-hmm. There's a boat.
There's a boat.
There's a guy stuck on a boat, and he's like, I didn't do it. They're like, are you sure? And he's like, I definitely didn't do it. And then they interview a bunch of rich guys, and it's like, oh, none of them did it. And the only person it can be is the person who showed us the dating app initially was this blonde woman who they really, really briefly touch on, like, why did you do it? And she's like, because I loved her. And it's like, no, New Amsterdam, you actually can't introduce a last-minute lesbian, even though that's like my...
Who's the bad person.
And then they're the bad person. Yeah, that doesn't... Like, really not a useful or productive way to introduce a queer character to your show at all. I'm going to give them a thumbs down on that straight up. I honestly found it, very rote. It is fun when they do like the back-to-back lineup of all the rich dudes, and they all think that they were the one for her, and they all are like betrayed in similar ways. I thought that was very entertaining. These like that must have been fun extras call-outs where they're like, I need you to look schlubby and wear a button-up shirt.
The one guy who's like, it's how computers work, zeros and ones.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
These
And
are
then
all
the
incels
antiques
today.
guy who recognized John Amsterdam as the table making guy that he used to be.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was cute.
More of John Amsterdam's old jobs, please. That's what I would like. I just enjoyed the boat stuff in the present because I feel like naval crime isn't touched on that much, and New York is like
You
on
gotta
the
watch
water.
more NCIS.
It's exactly what I was thinking. I wrote in my notes was I wish I should probably just watch NCIS, but I don't know if they probably have to stray from that. They can't do a whole show about boat crimes for however many episodes NCIS went for.
Let's see. NCIS
Hard cut 2.
episodes.
Alan has now watched all of NCIS and is in love with Mark Harmon deeply.
Guess how many seasons?
23.
Oh, okay. No, 19.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I knew every time I've like looked up like longest running shows, NCIS is like clawing its way up there.
Oh, it's still
Yeah.
it's still going.
Oh yeah.
Mamma mia.
Special Agent Leroy Jethro Gibbs. If you watch
Let's see
NCIS out there, which is a spin-off of the show Jag, by the way, if you never forget that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, if you watch NCIS, let us know if you're under the age of 60.
You know who's a big fan of NCIS? My brother. I don't
No
know if he still-
kidding.
I don't know if he still is, but he watched a lot of it back in the
Oh,
day.
I gotta ask him about that then the next time we talk. We're gonna be talking in the future. Who could say when?
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah. I don't know if the timing works out that people know what we're talking about. Anyways, so I wrote that was mostly my notes about the present. Was all like the different guys being idiots was funny, and the guy who's stuck on the boat is great because he's just really tired and seems like a believable character for once. And then the past is like super shallow. After we learned at the beginning that John is a reverse con man or whatever, we're introduced to his like lady friend, who seems to be like a 1920s flapper type, and they have a little bit of a repartee and they flirt a lot, and she drops a napkin with her phone number on it or something, and he like sleeps with her, and then he steals from her, and she catches him, and he unsteals from her. They had the formula for past and present storylines. They literally had it, and it feels like in these last couple episodes they've just lost it, which is a big bummer. Because
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're trying to get at is John Amsterdam. Like, they're trying to do a thing of con stories, stealing from people's stories, con. And they're also trying to do a thing of John is self-sabotaging all of these relationships. I think it's just not like the story is not that engaging because we've kind of seen him self-sabotage other relationships, and so much of it is spent in like not particularly interesting looking rooms with people just kind of sitting and talking. So yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just not like an engaging way to get this theme across.
It's exactly. And I honestly wished that it tied more back into like Sarah's plot as well, and that the show could have ended on like men and women, it's a crapshoot, and then like we explore John's like sexuality in season 2 or something like that. He's like, I tried like all these different women in my life, and I've been monogamous my whole life, and like, what if something bigger? And just doesn't do that. He has this really emotional conversation though with Sarah at the back of the episode, and she says that bullet, when it went through your heart, it killed something.
Too.
It killed us. And then she slaps him in the fucking face, which is sick. because he's like really leaning into like, I'm not lying to you, I'm immortal. And she slaps him because she's like, that's the worst, laziest lie you've ever told.
Well, she slaps him because she's like, is there someone else? And he
Yeah.
pauses and he says no. And she's like, but you had to think about it.
Whap.
Yeah, I don't know. It works for me because, like, of course it had to go this way, and it shows us definitively John Amsterdam has not changed as a person. He's like stuck in the same cycles and he's not fixing his problems.
Yeah.
But that line is not good.
Not this
a good
time.
line.
So then, yeah, she leaves him high and dry, and New Amsterdam 2008 ends on a kind of striking image of John walking into the streets of New York, into an intersection, cinematic, parallel storytelling, alone, single, miserable, and still alive, which is like an unintentional, it's an intentionally like cool moment to end on. I think it works, but it's not like series finale ending on. It's sort of like how, shows that like end early. Sometimes we try to like find meaning in their endings, and we're like, oh, that was really bleak, but maybe it was supposed to be bleak. And like, if this was the end of like a long arc where John just walks away, and I think it maybe would have worked better if it was like, no, but he really tried. Like, he tried with so many women, and he finally gave up. I think that would have been really beautiful. But I just haven't not known John Amsterdam long enough to feel emotionally attached to this guy who's like, damn, I guess I'm still single.
Yeah.
Like, John, you're really, 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 really good looking, and you're doing really well for yourself. You're gonna be fine, pal.
Yeah.
So that's the moment that New Amsterdam goes out on. And to sort of speak to like where it falls in our 13 under 13 so far. First off, I want to ask if you can rank from worst to best the three shows here in the tier
That we've covered in 13 under 13 so far.
On the Air, Drive, and New Amsterdam 08. Yes. And this is your opinion, not like any sort of objective reading, obviously.
I think On the Air was the worst. Partly because just the transfer that we watched it on was like difficult to watch, and that kind of colors my perception of it. But also just that show doesn't fully click for me. And then I think I'm gonna say Drive is better than New Amsterdam, just because New Amsterdam is full of like, it's like they both like maybe come out to be the same quality, but Drive is like consistently fun and good in a weird way, and New Amsterdam is like you're balancing the scales between wow, that's really interesting, and wow, that's boring. So I would say Drive ends up being better as a result of that.
I'm close there. I would actually put New Amsterdam as my worst, because I think that
Really?
Yeah, I think, well, I just don't like procedurals that I'm really picky. That's not to say I've never liked a procedural. Let's be real. I like period piece procedurals. That's three.
You don't
things,
like
by the way.
New York cop procedurals.
Not really. Not in the modern day, at least. And also the episodes that are offensive are like so offensive that they push the show out for me. All three of these shows have like really offensive stuff in them, right? That's like, that's something to be aware of. I think On the Air is number 2, again, because the experience of watching it was like legitimately uncomfortable, and it doesn't do anything. It's like a hollow show full of like ideas that don't even start to go anywhere. And then Drive is my number 1 with a gun because it's really funny and unintentionally funny, and like society has actually picked up, like TV has picked up on the ideas of Drive and done better things with it. Whereas like New Amsterdam, we like haven't really figured out a like immortal guy show that people really like dug into. And On the Air, I mean, we got 30 Rock, so like it's pretty much invalidated On the Air at this point. So I think Drive wins it for me, for moi. Easy, congratulations. But like what John said, we will be coming back to 13 under 13. We have to hit 13 shows eventually.
Yeah, we signed a pact with the devil to do that.
You will never die until you finish 1313. So that's why we're not finishing is we don't want to actually have to die. We like doing this too much. But we've gotten a lot of good feedback on it. I will say, folks who have been listening and enjoying the show have been really appreciative and really like enjoying 1313. So
yeah, so we'll go off, probably do a normal show or two, and in the meantime, if you have suggestions for other canceled before their time shows that are 13 or fewer episodes that you want us to cover, let us know. We have a couple ideas, but we want to hear what you all want us to take a look at. What have been the shows that have been living in the back of your mind the way that Drive and New Amsterdam have been for us?
Yeah, I need to find that Twitter thread that was like, what's a show that only you know exists or something, and see how many of
we
those
can
are.
watch Cavemen.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. We can watch the one where everybody gets in the car and goes to work together.
Yeah, which aired after Cavemen.
Yep. And then we can watch
Carpooling
Cavemen.
or whatever it was called.
Carpooling. You got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think it can be 13 or less.
That way we can watch A to Z.
Yeah, and there you go. Now we already have 6 shows, depending on who you ask.
Cool.
But I think it's time, Magellan. I think it's time for my favorite thing that we do on Chatz, which is when we announce the next show.
Yeah. So next season of Chatz, season 14, is going to be a show that we've piloted. Okay. At home, you should be starting to think like, okay, these are the clues. Let me do a guess. It's a show that we've piloted. It's a show that is good, potentially. A show that Alan's really excited about. Mm-hmm. Alan, do you want to tell the folks what we're going to be watching for season 14?
I do. It's boiling up inside of me. The year is 2014. Lost is well behind us, and I know people are really excited for us to eventually cover Lost. It's in the cards, but it's not our next season. However, some of the showrunners on Lost worked on some other shows for a while. Damon Lindelof showran a critical gem known as The Leftovers. Play that music, baby! The Leftovers, based on the novel by Tom Perrotta, is about people who were left
by
behind.
Sapphire.
Based on the novel it's about people who survived a rapturous event and the 2% of the population who disappeared, what happened to them. And it's really fascinating. It's 3 seasons long, and I want to emphasize more than ever, you should really try to watch it because we're going to be talking spoilers. We are talking about a show that is on a streaming platform. It's on HBO Max, which is available globally. If you need a better way to watch it, I can help you figure that out. But please, please, please watch The Leftovers with us. Alan, have watched the first 2 seasons as they came out and have watched 0 of the 3rd season. I've heard things about where it goes. I am so thrilled to talk about its twists and turns. If you're hesitant, like, oh, is this a mystery box show? And the biggest question is, like, are they going to answer the question of, like, what happened? Just put those fears behind you. Throw them out the window. You will be satisfied by The Leftovers, at least from what I've watched of it. I don't know. I have a conclusion. I've heard it ends very, very, very well. So get excited for that. We're talking about The Leftovers, folks. Welcome to the Chatzovers.
Yeah. And that'll take us through the summer. Our last episode of it, we'll do about 14 episodes, 2 episodes a week. And that'll end around September or so. So join us for that summertime ride through The Leftovers.
First up, we are rewatching Pilot, the first episode of The Leftovers, which this short summary from IMDb. The police chief faces struggles in both his personal and professional life as the 3rd anniversary of the departure approaches. This is an incredible episode. It's one of my favorite pilots ever. Justin Theroux is hot. You're going to hear us talk a lot about that. Please enjoy the pilot. Second episode, season 1, episode 2, Penguin 1, Us 0. Kevin goes to see a therapist after he has some unsettling encounters. Meg makes a decision about her future. Tom and Christine are left in a dicey situation. Jim Jill and Amy are interested as to where Nora is. I love how vague these summaries are. This is so good. We finally got good summaries. They tell you nothing, and yet they tell you everything. It's gonna be so much fun, y'all. I'm really thrilled. So come back next week for the Chatz overs. We are thrilled to bring it to you. But for now, Magellan, where can people hear you on the internet?
You can hear me on another podcast called Super Smash Echoes. It's a video game podcast where myself and friend of the pod, Justin, who was with us 2 episodes ago on New Chatzerdam. We talk about video games that are part of the franchises represented in Super Smash Brothers, or video games that are echoes of those franchises. As of late, we've been playing through Earthbound bits by bit, month to month, and it's been a fun, interesting time. And we also have some backlog episodes about some other games that you've probably heard of, and maybe you haven't played. And that's kind of the thing. It's kind of about like, the cultural footprint of games and stuff. So Super Smash Echoes, check me out over there. Alan, what about you? Where do you do your thing?
I do my thing in a few places. I am on with Six, who was just on part 1 of this episode on the Hunter's Quorum, where we talk about Monster Hunter monsters and whether or not we think they're really cool. That's a great show that we do. And then, you can hear us there on ScanlineMedia.com, where I've had a couple of other contributing things. And I'm also the head of the Talking Marketing Podcast for AMA Boston. So it's a marketing podcast. If you're into that sort of thing, I recommend you check it out. I have put a lot of work into the last couple months of it. So,
Nice.
Sheesh, that's what we got. Magellan, can you give us the plug zone for this week, please, my friend?
Surely. You can get in touch with the show in a couple of ways. You can email us at chatspot@gmail.com with your questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, requests to join us as a guest on the Leftovers. Name an episode, say you want to be there, and he'll be there. We have pretty much an open door policy. You just got to give us a heads up and let us know what's in your heart so that we can fulfill that for you. You can also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/chatspod. And you can DM us there, or, add us, or whatever people do on Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter in a while, but I'm assuming it works pretty much the same way. And then if you want to join fellow listeners in talking about the podcast, you can go on our subreddit, reddit.com/r/chatspod, where we're listening back to old episodes of Chatz. Currently, the last Chatzbender, our Avatar: The Last Airbender coverage. And you can also join us on the Discord, which is a benefit for $1 and up patrons. But you could also ask very nicely, please, can I get on the Discord? And we'll say, sure, why not? Come on, join us there. It's a party. We talk about anything related to the shows we've covered on this show, as well as, just sort of general pop culture stuff and whatever you want to talk about on there. You can support the show with money. I mentioned the patreon.com/chatspot. $1 and up gets you on the Discord and some random old bonus episodes. $3 a month and up gets you access to our regular monthly bonus content. Currently 3 episodes a month, which could be us piloting shows or doing movie commentaries or having discussions about whatever it is we feel like discussing. So this month we talked about some life advice that maybe we agree with, maybe we don't, and that was kind of fun. We did a commentary of The Master of Disguise. Whoa, what the heck? We did a pilot of, that show that I didn't like. What was that show called? The Ridley Scott show? Raised by Wolves. Raised by Wolves. So that was our May content. $5 a month and up gets you thanked right here at the end of the show. Thank you to our $5 patrons, Lee, Andrew, Stefan, Six, Fendon, Pat, and Nick of the Brothers in Infinite War, Mike, Marcus, my mom, Kat, Jen, and Arthur. You can also support the show by rating us on Apple Podcasts, by checking out our website, chatspod.com, by supporting @Camillustrator, the illustrator of our podcast art, and just by being good to people out there in the world. Make the world a nicer place. That's a way to support us too. Just, in general, because we want to live in a nice world. Cool. Hey, Alan.
You sound so tired.
Huh?
You sounded so tired. You're like, cool.
I just spoke for a while without breathing. Alan, so I got a question for you.
Yes, what's up, baby?
If you were to tell folks one or more things that they could watch or read or listen to or do between now and next time, and you were to package it as like a small, delicious little morsel, like a Vlasic Snackum, I'm going to call it a Chatzum.
Oh, that's
what would
clever.
your Chatzum be? Thank you. What would your Chatzum be?
One of the challenges of Chatz, the way that we like record and then release the episodes is, so we have a running doc of every Chatzum we've ever done. We've been doing them since 2019, and we don't we record 2 episodes ahead of release generally. So like last week's Chatsums aren't in the doc yet because the doc is public and I don't want people to know our Chatsums before the episode is out. I write them in there when the episode comes. So I don't know if I Chatsum this last week. I forget. So if that's the case, then I'll come back and like edit in a different Chatsum. But for now, I would like to. No, I definitely didn't talk about this one. No. I talked about like gender reveal last week. It was great. Hey guys, have you heard of Station 11 on HBO Max? Are you familiar? What if there was a show about a pandemic? Hold on. Don't run away. I know you're like, I'm sick of it. I don't want to think about the pandemic anymore. No, hold on. Come on. But it was also about how art touches our lives and how theater and creating things are like beautiful acts that can help us persist in a cruel, cruel world. What if I told you that? That's right, folks. Station 11. It's a 10-episode HBO Max original series starring Mackenzie Davis and a bunch of other really incredible people. Very emotionally charged series about a bunch of people who survived a pandemic 20 years on and are now running a traveling Shakespeare troupe. And it pings back and forth between them in, 20 years post-pandemic as well as right before and how the different characters got to where they are. It's great. It's amazing. I'm halfway through the series, and there are plot twists and mysteries and emotionally charged scenes and comedy and beauty, and it's very like restorative. It helps me remember the power of like the human state, the human condition, and I love it very much. It's really like touched my heart being able to watch that show the past couple weeks. So check out Station 11 if you haven't, and that's what I got for you. It's one simple Chatsum. What about you, Maggie?
Okay, I've got 2 Chatsums. One is a specific thing, and the other is kind of like a small constellation of things. So I'll give you the more simple Chatsum first, which is Pusha T. Okay, recently released an album called "It's Almost Dry," and it's really good. He's rapping. He's talking about dealing drugs, which I saw an interview with him where he said he was the Martin Scorsese of rap, because he always makes stuff about the same thing, but that's like his thing. So that's cool. But, fair warning if you're not interested in that sort of thing. Half of the songs are produced by Pharrell, half are produced by Kanye West. And it's really interesting to listen to that and hear the ways in which their different production styles bring different things out of Pusha T, kind of mesh with each other, but kind of clash. They're on Spotify, at least there are 3 different ways the tracks are sequenced. One is the sort of like album order. One is the order where all the Pharrell songs are first. One is the order where all the Kanye songs are first. So it's cool. And it's, I think, really good. I don't want to go there and say it's a no skip, but it's definitely a low skip album.
Ooh.
I'll say that.
Okay.
And every song is at least like interesting, even if you only are like, listen to this one once and listen to these other ones like 100 times.
Right.
But It's Almost Dry is really, 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 really good, and I would recommend it. So there's that. Okay, Alan. So did you know that the slowdown came back?
Excuse me? What? Sorry, you just like activated a really old part of my mind. Huh?
So the Slowdown is like a daily poetry podcast that used to be hosted by Tracy K. Smith and ended in like October of 2020. It's been back since September of 2021, hosted by Ada Limon.
What?
Who's fucking awesome. So the Slowdown's back, baby. If you didn't know, check it out. It's been back now for about half a year, over half a year, like 8 months. And I wanted to specifically shout out an episode 678 that came out on May 19th, because the poem feature there was written by this guy that when I was in college, he was a post-grad at Stanford, and I did a like one-on-one independent study in poetry with him. His name is Brian Tierney. He's an amazing poet, and he had a poem featured on the Slowdown, read by Ada Limon, episode 678. You're the one I want to watch the last ships go down with, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And through that, I also learned that he recently put out a book that I ordered right away that I'm sure is great, that I haven't read yet, and I'll probably officially chat some in the future, called Rise and Float. But I already know, knowing Brian, that it's really good. So that's my chatsum for the Slowdown. For the Slowdown, episode 678, for Brian Tierney and his work, and specifically his book Rise and Float. But yeah.
I'm so happy. I love Ada Limon. I freaking loved the Slowdown. Was like the best thing that came out of like the early pandemic. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. It's back.
It's so good. Oh my god!
I know. I was so happy when I went on Facebook between our halves and I saw him post about it. I was like, hell yeah, this is great.
Oh, you found out through him. That's even cooler.
Yeah, he had a post. He was like, so grateful to Ada Limon for last week reading my thing on the Slowdown. I was like, what? The Slowdown is back?
This is the best news. Sorry, I'm having an emotional moment right now.
Yeah.
I am gonna listen to so many of these.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Thank you, Magellan. Thank you for being... I really want to think about this one because I feel like I've let the people down with my outros for New Chatzerdam. The people are the voices inside my head telling me I'm not good enough, dude.
I think that's you inside your head saying that. Huh? The people love you.
They keep saying that. I don't believe them. Anyways, no, I do, guys. It's fine. Don't worry. Thank you to Magellan for being the new to my Amsterdam. He keeps me fresh. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to this episode of Chatz. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's live to see another day. Don't use that. Don't use that.
I might. All right, I'm going to hit stop.
Stinky.